All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking an absolute masterclass from entrepreneur and investor Mark Cuban on how to turn artificial intelligence into your ultimate learning and career advantage. We're cutting through all that endless hype you see online and focusing on exactly how you, especially if you're a student or just starting out in your career, can use AI to build a massive competitive edge. We're going to cover the mindset you need, the actual mechanics of learning with AI, and why, surprisingly, your human brain is literally more valuable now than it's ever been.
But hey, before we get too deep, we really need to tackle the elephant in the room. When you sit down with a tool like ChatGPT or Claude, what's your actual intention? Are you just, trying to get a quick summary so you don't have to read a chapter? Squeezing out an essay so you can skip the actual work? Because honestly, if you are, you're playing a really dangerous short-term game. The real power of this tech? It's not in skipping the work. It's in completely expanding your capacity to do the work.
Mark Cuban paints a pretty stark picture here. He says we're basically splitting into two totally different camps right now. On one side, you've got people using AI so they don't have to learn anything. But on the other side, you have people using it to learn absolutely everything. Cuban actually calls AI the greatest democratizer of knowledge we have ever seen. Think about it. You could be a young student anywhere on the planet, and if you have a smartphone, boom, you suddenly have access to every library, every professor, every top-tier consultant. If you use that access to fuel your curiosity, you are always going to have a massive edge over the folks just looking for a quick shortcut. So to really pull this off, we kind of need to understand what AI is actually good at right now. You might hear the fancy term agentic AI thrown around. Sounds super technical, right? Well, Cuban has this hilarious and honestly incredibly accurate way of defining it. He just calls it your hungover intern. It's a great analogy. An AI agent is basically a system that handles all that tedious, repetitive, soul-crushing work you just don't want to do or don't have time for. And the best part? You can let this intern stay out as late as they want, because the AI is going to work 24/7 without a single complaint. It formats the data, compares the spreadsheets, pulls the research. It completely clears your plate so you can actually focus on the big overarching goals.
Moving on to Section 2, Deepening Your Subject Exploration, How to Build a Personalized AI Syllabus.
So how do we actually do this? How do we use AI as a curiosity engine instead of just a high-tech cheating device? Well, the secret sauce is right here in these steps. The trick is, you don't just ask the AI for the answer, you tell it to be your personal tutor. Step 1, you just input exactly what you're interested in or exactly where you're struggling in a class. Step 2, ask the AI to build you a completely personalized syllabus from scratch. And then step 3, and this is where the absolute magic happens, you iterate. You change up the questions based on your own learning speed. If you aren't grasping a concept, you just tell the AI, hey, explain this differently. Maybe ask for a sports analogy or a pop culture reference. It adapts entirely to you.
And Cuban gives a fantastic example of exactly how this plays out with American history. Think about a traditional classroom. Everyone sits there and learns about George Washington for the exact same amount of time, right? But what if you have a student who is just utterly fascinated by Paul Revere's Midnight Ride? An AI tutor can pivot on a dime. It can spend way more time exploring the broader historical context specifically through the lens of Paul Revere. That keeps the student highly engaged, deeply curious, and actively learning, instead of just passively cramming facts into their head for a Friday quiz.
Which brings us to Section 3, the human overseer. Why critical thinking is your ultimate job security.
Now, with all this crazy computing power floating around, it is super easy to start thinking, well, AI is just going to take over everything. But Cuban offers a pretty massive reality check here. I want you to picture this scenario. Imagine you're visually impaired and you're standing right at the edge of a super busy, chaotic intersection. You have two choices. You can either rely on a highly trained seeing eye dog or a brand new smartphone guided by the absolute latest AI. Which one are you picking to get you across that street in one piece? You're taking the dog every single time, no question. But why? Why on earth would we trust a dog over billions of dollars of cutting-edge tech?
Well, it basically comes down to this idea. Cuban points out that even a 2-year-old sitting in a high chair with a sippy cup understands reality fundamentally better than AI does. Think about it. That toddler knows for a fact that if they push that cup off the tray, it's going to fall, hit the floor, make a huge mess, and mom is probably going to come running. They understand the real-world consequences of their physical actions. AI just doesn't have that. It doesn't live in the physical world with us. If a language model spits out bad advice, it has absolutely zero concept of what the real-world fallout of that advice is actually going to be.
And this exact contrast is literally the blueprint for your future job security. Look, AI is amazing at process optimization, it's great at vibe coding, and summarizing massive datasets.
But humans? We are completely required to actually understand the consequences, define the context, and apply critical thinking. No sane business is just going to blindly trust whatever output an AI throws at them. Future employees, which is you guys, you must act as that critical buffer. You have to be the person in the room who knows exactly when to trust the hungover intern and when to step in and say, yeah, no, that is definitely not going to work out in the real world.
All right, let's look at Section 4, Prototyping New Business Ideas, from Curiosity to Minimum Viable Product. So, if you are acting as that critical thinker, how do you actually use AI to build stuff? Well, Cuban decided to test the limits of the tech himself, and the timeline is wild. Minute 1, he gets this random idea for a button you'd put on a shirt that secretly holds a 24-hour video camera. By minute 5, he's got the AI spitting out a full business plan, complete with financing and economics. By minute 12, he had the AI generate a complete bill of materials with vendor costs and even draft a patent application. Guys, 12 minutes. Back in the day, that would have taken weeks of clicking through terrible Google links. Today, it's the ultimate time hack to feed your curiosity and literally prototype your ideas on the fly.
And the real-world payoff for these kinds of prototypes is just staggering. $50,000. That is exactly how much money Rebel Cheese, one of Cuban's companies from Shark Tank, is saving every single month right now. And get this, they didn't hire some massive, expensive tech firm. They literally just used a simple AI agent. This little agent just takes a picture of the shipping box they use, compares it to their price list and the shipping invoice, and if the shipping company overcharged them, which, let's be real, happens all the time, the AI automatically files a credit request. 50 grand a month saved by one clever, incredibly simple AI agent. Mind-blowing, right?
Which leads us directly to what I honestly think is the absolute best, most actionable piece of advice in this entire explainer. Cuban says if he were a 16-year-old student right now, he wouldn't be out there hunting for some entry-level coding job at a giant corporation. Those jobs are already vanishing anyway. Instead, he said he would walk straight into local small and medium-sized businesses and pitch them. He'd say, hey, let me look at the very bottom of your to-do list, show me all that tedious stuff you never ever get to, and let me build you a custom AI agent to handle it automatically. If you become the go-to AI problem solver for small businesses, you are going to make yourself completely indispensable.
Moving into our final part, Section 5. Iterate for career success. Curiosity is the ultimate skill.
As we start to wrap things up, we really have to look at what it takes to survive and thrive in the long run. To be a truly future-proof employee, you absolutely must be endlessly curious. You've got to be that critical thinker who acts as the safety buffer between AI and the actual real world. But most importantly, point number 3, Cuban stresses that the absolute most crucial word in an AI-driven world is iterate. Look, these tools are going to change. The models are going to get way smarter. You can't just learn a prompt once today and call it good forever. You have to continuously iterate on your own skills, constantly adapting to new models and figuring out fresh ways to apply them.
And that brings us to our final question for you. The door to disrupt legacy businesses and completely reinvent outdated ways of learning is just sitting wide open right now. AI isn't just some gimmick to help you write a polite email or cheat on a midterm. It is literally a limitless engine for your own curiosity. It's time to stop passively consuming this technology and start actively using it to build your future. So what will your curiosity build today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and start iterating.